The folding chairs were the first insult. They'd been lined up in perfect rows, like the room expected obedience. Back straight, hands quiet, questions limited to 2 minutes with no follow-ups. Thea stood near the wall and watched elders ease themselves down slow, knees complaining, pride refusing help. She watched young folks in sneakers hover behind them, ready to drag chairs closer if a grandmother needed air or a better view. She watched white couples in golf shirts take the front row like it belonged to them, like everything on this island did, if you gave it enough time. A box fan in the corner chopped the air into warm slices. Outside, the late summer evening pressed against the community center windows. Thick, damp, salt-heavy. You could smell the marsh even from here, that briny green rot that meant home to some, and mosquitoes to others. Thea adjusted the strap of her tote bag and tried to keep her jaw unclenched. "Baby," Miss Cora murmured beside her, voice low as prayer. "You ain't gon' chew a hole through your own teeth, is you?" Thea glanced down. Her grandmother's hands were folded over a thin leather folder, knuckles rounded with age, veins raised like river roots. Miss Cora wore a white blouse and a navy skirt, church-ready without being showy, and her hair was wrapped neat in a scarf, the color of deep clay. She looked calm. She looked like she'd survived worse than a town hall meeting. Thea's throat tightened. "I'm fine, Meta." Miss Cora scanned the room, looking at the new faces, the eager faces, the faces that smiled a little too much like they were about to get what they wanted. Thea shifted her weight, the wood floor creaking under her sandals. She'd spent all day doing what she always did, answering emails from reporters who wanted a quote, a soundbite, something clean to paste over something complicated. She'd driven 2 tourists from Ohio around the island on a heritage experience, smiling through their wonder like it didn't burn that the very land they admired was being priced out from under the people who made it what it was. And then she'd come here, to stand with a microphone on a plastic podium, while men in pressed shirts explained how they planned to change your home. Thea reached into her tote and felt for the folded notes she'd written, then rewritten again. She wasn't afraid to speak. That had never been the problem. The problem was that she cared. "Ms. Wright," a voice at her shoulder. Smooth, polished, professional. Thea turned and found a woman with a lanyard and a clipboard, hair pulled tight into a bun like even her thoughts had to be organized. "Yes? We'll have public comments after the presentation. 2 minutes per speaker. Please keep remarks respectful." The woman smiled as if she'd just offered Thea a mint. Thea held the smile that wanted to slip. "I'm always respectful." The woman's gaze darted, quick, practiced, toward Miss Cora and then back to Thea. "Wonderful. If you'd like to sign up, I already did," Thea said, and kept her voice sweet. "Online. Yesterday, like you asked." The women nodded, clipboard hugged closer, and moved away. Miss Cora leaned in. "You ain't wrong for being sharp," she said softly. "But don't let him pull you out your spirit." Thea's laugh came out quick and humorless. "My spirit is tired." Her grandmother's mouth twitched. "Then let your backbone do the work." Thea swallowed, eyes stinging from nowhere. She blinked it away. She wasn't going to cry in this room. Not for them. A murmur swept the crowd near the entrance, and Thea felt it before she saw it. The subtle shift that happened when someone important walked in. Men stood a little straighter. People turned like sunflowers. Someone whispered, "That's Mercer." Thea followed the motion and saw him. Not the father, though she'd seen Grand Mercer's face enough times in brochures and ribbon-cutting photos to recognize him anywhere. This was younger, tall, broad-shouldered without trying to be. White dress shirt, sleeves rolled to the forearms. No tie, like he wanted to look approachable while still making sure nobody forgot he was in charge. His hair was dark blonde, cut clean. His jaw looked like it had never known struggle. But his eyes were sharper than she expected. Gray-blue, steady, taking in the room the way somebody assessed property lines. He smiled at someone on the board, shook hands, leaned in to say something that made a woman laugh. Thea didn't smile back. She didn't even look away. Miss Cora's fingers tightened around her folder. That Mercer boy, she said. Not quite a question. Thea kept her voice low. Cal. I've seen him before. He's the one they send when they want to sound reasonable. And is he reasonable? Thea watched him greet another person. Watched the ease of him, the confidence like a birthright. He's convincing. The microphone squealed suddenly, and the room quieted as a man stepped to the podium. He cleared his throat and gave that practice thank y'all for coming, with just enough Southern in it to feel like a costume. Thea listened with half her mind while her other half kept tracking Cal Mercer, how he stood, who he spoke to, where his attention drifted. He didn't look bored. He looked intent, like he believed what he was doing mattered. That almost made her angrier. The presentation started the way they always did, slides with clean fonts, numbers stacked like promises. Affordable housing initiatives, infrastructure improvements, job creation. They said community so many times, it started sounding like a word with no meaning. Then a map came up on the projector, bright blocks of color over familiar roads, and Thea felt her stomach drop. Because she knew that area. Not just the streets. The stories. The presenter clicked through more slides. A mixed-use development, boutique retail, waterfront access, a cultural pavilion, with a smiling stock photo of a black child holding a basket. Like heritage was something you could buy and take home. Thea's hands curled around her notes until the paper bit into her palms. When Cal Mercer stepped up to speak, the room shifted again, like people had been waiting for him specifically. He didn't start with numbers. He started with charm. I grew up here, he said, and his voice filled the room clean, confident. And I love this island. I know change is hard. I know it can feel like something is being taken from you. But I truly believe, if we do this right, we can build something that benefits everyone. Thea's lips parted on a silent laugh. Benefits everyone. Like the tide rose for all boats the same. Cal continued. We've met with stakeholders. We've consulted with local historians. We've listened. Thea lifted her hand before she could stop herself. Not for permission, just instinct. But the moderator didn't acknowledge her. He kept smiling like a lid over a pot. Cal's gaze drifted across the crowd, and then landed on Thea. It was brief, a glance. The kind of glance that said, I see you. Then his eyes dropped, like he recognized her too. Something passed between them. Heat, irritation, recognition, the memory of headlines and comments, and the way Thea had been painted as hostile simply because she refused to be quiet. Cal's expression didn't harden. It sharpened. Thea's stomach tightened in a way that wasn't only anger. She hated that. Hated her body for noticing anything about him besides what he represented. Cal looked back at his slides. Now, one concern we've heard is cultural preservation. We want to be very clear. We are committed to honoring Gullah Geechee heritage. We're exploring partnerships with cultural organizations to ensure the history of this place is protected and celebrated. Protected and celebrated. Thea felt Miss Cora's hand slide over hers, warm, grounding. A silent reminder, backbone. Public comment finally opened, and the moderator called names from a list. Thea waited, listening to the first few speakers, some praising the project, some asking about parking, some complaining about noise ordinances, like that was the biggest threat in the room. Then the moderator said, Althea Wright. Thea stood. The plastic chair scraped the floor loud in the hush. Every head turned. She walked down the center aisle like she'd done 100 times. Church, graduations, funerals. Except this wasn't sacred. This was a fight dressed up as procedure. She reached the microphone and adjusted it down, just a little. She looked out at the room. Then she looked at Cal. He was watching her like he didn't know whether to brace or to listen. Thea placed her notes on the podium, but didn't read them. My name is Althea Wright, she said, voice steady. I'm Gullah Geechee. My family has been on this island for generations, before the resorts, before the gates, before the brochures that pretend this place was empty until y'all discovered it. A ripple moved through the crowd, approval from some, discomfort from others. Thea kept going. You keep saying community, but every time development happens, our people are the ones who have to leave. Taxes go up. Land gets divided. Heirs' property gets exploited. Folks get pressured to sell because they don't have attorneys on retainer, and they don't have time to fight paperwork that was never built for us in the first place. Cal's jaw tightened. Just a flicker. Good. Let it land. And then, Thea said, voice rising, when we're gone, you put up a sign. You name a park. You sell our food in a restaurant with authentic in the title. You take the flavor and leave the people. She paused, breathing through the heat in her chest. Miss Cora's gaze anchored her from the second row, proud, unwavering. Thea looked back at Cal, and the words came out quieter, sharper. You said you grew up here. Then you should know. What you're calling progress feels like an eviction with better marketing. Silence. Then the moderator cleared his throat like he could scrub the air clean. Thank you, Miss Wright. Mr. Mercer, would you like to respond? Cal stood slowly, like he was choosing the pace on purpose. He walked to the microphone with an ease Thea resented, like he'd never had to fight for space in a room. When he spoke, his voice was calm, controlled. Ms. Wright, he said, I hear your concerns, truly, and I respect your advocacy, but I'm not here to erase anybody. I'm here to make sure this island can support its future. Thea lifted her chin. Whose future? Cal's eyes held hers. Everyone's. Thea felt something flare. Anger, yes, but also the unmistakable snap of attention when someone finally meets you head on. He wasn't dismissing her. He was challenging her. And the worst part was, he looked like he meant it. Thea's pulse kicked, harder than it should have. She stepped back from the microphone, refusing to let him see anything on her face. As she walked away, the room broke into murmurs again, the meeting rolling onward like her words hadn't just cracked something open. But Thea knew, Cal knew, this wasn't over. And outside, beyond the windows, the air had that strange, waiting heaviness, like the Atlantic was holding its breath, building weather out on the horizon.